They're feeling happy, and let's be honest, maybe a little bit hungover in Happy Valley today as Penn State advances to the College Football Playoff Semifinals with a 31-14 victory over Boise State on New Year's Eve. And man, the Broncos made this a little bit more difficult than the Nittany Lions would have liked.
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
A lot has been said about the path. Penn State has an easy path to the college football playoff semifinals. I want to say this, when you get to the postseason in this 12-team college football type of format, nothing is easy. I think Boise State proved that when you look at the final score, you wake up in the morning, maybe you were at a New Year's Eve party and you didn't watch this game, you wake up 31-14. Yeah, this game certainly could have been a lot closer. I thought Boise State certainly brought a lot of fight in this game. But here's what I want to say about Penn State in their first two games of the college football playoff. Like, the title of my reaction last week to their victory over the SMU Mustangs was, hey, they played a B game and got an A result. When you're in the postseason, you get a win. I don't care how you get it. That's an A result, right? That's exactly what you want. Whether you win 7-6 or whether you win 52-10, it's A, no matter how you win a football game. I thought in this game for Penn State, once again, I don't think they played up to their potential. I don't think they certainly played an A-plus game. I don't think they played an A game, certainly, and we'll kind of tackle how that all shook out in this game. But you can kind of look at it a couple of different ways if you're a Penn State fan. Like, you can be optimistic and say, you know what, in this postseason, we know that we can play at a higher level, right? We know certain parts of our team can be better because we've seen them be better throughout this football season. So there's an optimism, right, when you go to these semifinals and maybe a national championship game that says, hey, we can still reach that level. And we just haven't been able to put it all together yet in the playoffs, but we're going to get there. Or you can maybe look at these past two games and you can say, you know, oh man, this part of our team or that part of our team, it maybe hasn't played like we've seen this season, and maybe that's happened two games in a row. Are we going to see it now in a step up in competition in the semifinals? It's two ways to think right now for Penn State, but the good news is you're moving on to the Final Four, and you're going to keep on playing football, and that's exactly what James Franklin wants to do right now. You got to give a ton of credit to Spencer Danielson and this Boise State football team. There were parts of this game where they made life pretty difficult for the Penn State Nittany Lions. You know, there was maybe a couple of things that I wasn't exactly right on when it came to Boise State when I talked about them in my preview. But hey, that's the game. That's the game when you get into an opinionated business. I did not watch all 12 or 13 Boise State games, all 60 minutes certainly of the game. But in my preview, I talked about towards the end, all that I think Penn State's going to be obviously really focused on Ashton Jeanty. Got to stop Ashton Jeanty. Got to stop Ashton Jeanty, right? Jeanty. But I thought, hey, maybe they could catch him a little bit off guard by Maddox Manson kind of throwing the football a little bit more. And you saw Maddox was effective throwing the ball, 23 of 35, 304 yards. But Penn State secondary did come up with 3 second-half interceptions. That certainly helped to change this game and maybe swing it back the other way, of course, in favor of the Nittany Lions. Also, you had some key missed field goals for the Boise State Broncos. This is a game, folks. It could have been something like 24-20, early fourth, midway through the fourth quarter. But those are two pretty big things that swung it in the favor of the blue and white of the Penn State Nittany Lions. Once again, Penn State, or I should say Boise State, certainly brought the juice in this Fiesta Bowl game, and Penn State fans, it was a little bit shaky, certainly, at times in the middle of this football game. So, run the ball, stop the run. It's a saying that we've heard here in Big Ten country and really all across all levels of football for a very long time. You can find a lot of success, certainly, if you do those two things. I thought Penn State certainly ran the football effectively, and they contained Ashton Jeanty effectively, two things that they certainly needed to do in this game. Let's start first on the offensive side of the ball, and let's talk about their run game and maybe how that is becoming the true number one option. That is becoming the path forward, certainly for the Penn State Nittany Lions. It is crystal clear. They are hitting their stride. They are peaking when it comes to running the football right now. I think that they're one of the best rushing teams. I know Notre Dame is certainly really good running the football, but Penn State is one of the best rushing teams in all of college football right now. It goes, of course, with their two great backs in the backfield. Obviously, the offensive line has been very good in run blocking, certainly right now. 41 carries, 216 yards as a team. Kaytron Allen, I've been watching him since he came on campus a few years back, and I think this, when you go to the Big Ten championship game where this team nearly rushed for 300 yards, when you look at this SMU game, right, this past game, and then you look at this game in the quarterfinals against Boise State, this might be as good or the best 3-game stretch that we've seen out of 13 in blue and white running the football. He puts his shoulder down. He's the thunder to Nick Singleton's lightning, and he gets big runs at big times. He breaks tackles. He's a key cog in the machine, certainly, for what Penn State is doing. 17 carries, 134 yards for Allen on the ground. Nick Singleton, of course, the Lightning, he had that explosive run towards the end of this game. 12 carries, 87 yards for Nick Singleton on the ground. Now, I want to say something that talks about their pass game that, of course, circles back certainly to their run game as well. Penn State's up 14-0 in this game. Now, part of their 14 points is Drew Aller hitting a big play over the top and creating that explosive play over the top for Penn State early on in this football game. But they get the ball after a turnover, and now Penn State really has a chance to put this game away early. But a fumbled exchange from Drew Aller, and that's where things really started to change a little bit. Because when you're playing an underdog like Boise State and you have the opportunity to slam the door shut, go ahead 21-0, create a lot of confidence and momentum for yourself and take away the confidence and momentum that is needed for an underdog to go up against a big favorite like Penn State, you got to take that opportunity. They didn't shut the door completely. It was propped open just a little bit. They left the window open a little bit, and that's what Boise State needed to really create a spark, create confidence, because from that point to maybe mid-late fourth quarter, this was a fairly tight football game between these two teams, certainly. And here's kind of what happened offensively for Penn State after that fumble I noticed. I think they saw the success of the deep ball on that touchdown early in this game, and they thought, let's keep going to it. Let's keep going to it. And I think they had a lot of confidence that says, hey, if we don't get that deep ball, our defense is going to be good enough. The rest of our offense, run game, which we talked about before, is going to be good enough. We're certainly going to be able to hold on against a team that we're much more talented than in the Boise State Broncos. But I thought Andy Kotelnicki, he was taking a lot of deep shots. A lot of deep shots down the field. And I'm not certain just how many deep shots they were taking. I'm not sure if that's really plays into what Penn State is best at, right? I certainly think they're great, right? I just talked about it. They're hitting their peak, running the football, working the middle of the field with a guy like Tyler Warren, certainly in the pass game. But I really noticed that, hey, some of these deep balls maybe getting their drives a little bit out of rhythm where they weren't able to hit it time after time after time. So they weren't as successful after that first deep ball touchdown, throwing the ball down the field as well. Where does this all kind of circle back to? I think that they're going to learn from this. I think that they're going to learn, hey, this is and look, they ran for 41 times, 216 yards. They certainly did a good job running the football, but I think going forward, this is going to be a team that is going to be really invested in their run game to be able to be successful. Maybe they'll work the middle of the field with Tyler Warren a little bit. They're still going to attempt the deep shots in the semifinals and a potential national championship game because Drew Aller does throw a pretty good deep ball. I'm just not sure if they will take as many deep shots. I understand why they did it. This is a Boise State team, which we'll talk about this in just a minute. They like to bring pressure. They like to get heat on the quarterback, and they're triple digits against the pass. So they thought, hey, if our O-line can hold up enough, we'll get one-on-one matchups over the top, and we'll be able to maybe extend this lead certainly a little bit more. They weren't able to have as much success down the stretch as they were early on in this football game. as well. Let's talk about their defense, Penn State's defense, that is. They contained Ashton Jeanty. You're never going to stop Ashton Jeanty. Jeanty, 30 carries, 104 yards in this game. I talked about in my preview towards the back half of my preview, and I said, what happens if Penn State, we all know how good their defensive line is, what happens if Penn State just blows up Boise State's offensive line? They play on the other side of the line of scrimmage. I think this is what happens. 9 tackles for loss behind the line of scrimmage for Penn State in this game. Deni Dennis Sutton played a really good game. 2.5 TFLs. He had a sack certainly in there as well. And I think that was the big matchup. You can talk about Jeanty all you want, but if you don't consistently win the battle at the line of scrimmage, I don't care who your running back is back there. You can have 1980 whatever Barry Sanders, right? You can have 2014 Melvin Gordon back there. If you don't match up at the line of scrimmage, you're not going to have as much success, and I think that's what you certainly saw in this football game. Let's move on to the triple P, penalties and pass protection. 23 combined penalties in this football game, 10 from Penn State. I think we talked about maybe the deep ball getting this offense a teeny bit out of rhythm, maybe a little bit. I think penalties certainly had something to do with that as well for Penn State. So they've certainly got to clean that up going forward into the semifinals if they want to be a team that can advance past the semifinals into a potential national championship game. I talked before about how Boise State liked to bring pressure. This is a Penn State team, right, that also is going to need to get better in pass protection as well. I thought the Broncos did a really good job bringing pressures. They stunted up front, and there was a few times where a guy from the outside, he's stunting inside, and some of the pass protection was a little bit off. The communication was maybe a little bit off for Penn State up front. The Broncos 4 sacks and 7 tackles for loss in this game, and I think that was another contributing factor for this game staying as close as it was for as long as it was. All right, Penn State, Nittany Lions, and your fans. We talked at the top of this thing. The easy road through the first 2 rounds that everybody's been talking about. Now it's time to kick it into gear. We talked about, hey, maybe you haven't played your complete best games your first 2 rounds. And now it's time for James Franklin to win the big game. Now you put your money where your mouth is. There's going to be everybody, maybe not this commentator, but there's going to be a lot of people out there saying, hey, look at the route. Look at SMU. Look at Boise State. Look at how maybe they weren't as good throwing the football here. Look at how maybe they weren't as good with this over here. There's going to be people that are nitpicking. Look at how close that this game was against Boise State for as long as it was, and whether they face Notre Dame or whether they face Georgia down in South Florida, there are going to be people that are saying, is James Franklin in a big game? Penn State hasn't been playing their A or A-plus game that we maybe saw at earlier parts during this game. You're going to be questioned. You are going to be doubted. How is Penn State going to respond? They need to kick it into gear. They need to get better in pass protection. I talked about maybe what they need to do in terms of their pass game and how they maybe need to structure that going forward. I feel really good about their run game. I feel really good about their defensive line. Their secondary, we'll see. But the winner of this game, you've got Notre Dame. Of course, they're very invested in the run game. You got a backup quarterback right now for Georgia, so you may be able to get by with that at least in the semifinals. Those are things that maybe need to get sure up before we get to that semifinal game. But hey, you are in the semifinals. That's what matters. Leave all your thoughts, Penn State, Boise State, and a potential semifinal game in the comments below. I'm Big Ten Ted. Happy New Year, everybody, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.